The Caldwell estate was a monument to power and prestige, sprawling gardens, marble pillars, and crystal chandeliers that sparkled like stars trapped indoors. To anyone looking in from the outside, my life was a dream painted in gold and luxury. I'm Sophia Caldwell, daughter of Robert and Margaret Caldwell, heirs to a vast fortune built on decades of shrewd business deals and quiet influence. Yet beneath the gilded surface, my existence felt like a carefully constructed cage, beautiful but confining. From a young age, I learned the rules: excellence at all costs, discretion in all things, and loyalty to the family above all else. Every smile, every gesture was rehearsed. Every misstep could unravel years of careful reputation management. My father, Robert, was a man whose words shaped industries and whose presence commanded respect or fear. His expectations were high, his love often expressed in the form of pressure and control. My mother, Margaret, was a vision of grace and gentleness, but beneath her serene smile lay a strength and resolve few understood. My older brother, Ethan, was both a rival and a protector, his relationship with me complicated by unspoken resentments and family expectations. Despite the luxury, the life I lived was lonely. The grand rooms echoed with silence more often than laughter, and the weight of expectation pressed on me like a stone. One evening, as the family gathered for a gala celebrating the foundation's latest achievements, I found myself adrift amidst the glittering crowd. The chandeliers cast fractured light on faces painted with practiced smiles, while conversations swirled around me like a tempest. Behind a veil of civility, I sensed something darker: secrets whispered in shadowed corners, alliances forged and broken with a glance. I caught sight of my father speaking in hushed tones with a man whose reputation was clouded by rumours of corruption. Words like risk, cover-up and exposure drifted faintly to my ears. My heart raced as this perfect facade began to crack before me. Returning to the solitude of the estate's library, I pored over financial reports and correspondence, seeking answers to questions I dared not voice aloud. The golden cage I inhabited was more prison than palace, and I knew deep down I couldn't stay locked inside forever. Mornings in the Caldwell estate were a paradox, the world outside bustling with life and noise, while inside these walls time seemed to move at a measured, heavy pace. The ornate clock in the grand foyer ticked relentlessly, marking each second of a life carefully orchestrated by others. I often found solace in the estate's vast library, a sanctuary lined with leather-bound books that smelled of age and wisdom. It was there, amid the silent rows of stories, that I allowed myself the rarest of freedoms to think without restraint. One rainy afternoon, as the storm pattered against the tall windows, I found myself drawn to a hidden compartment in my father's desk, a detail overlooked in years of careful cleaning. Inside lay folders thick with documents, contracts, financial statements, and letters stained with secrets. My fingers trembled as I flipped through pages, detailing sums of money transferred to untraceable accounts, letters hinting at deals that skirted the law, and communications warning of exposure. The perfect image of my family, respected, untouchable, began to dissolve into something darker and more complex. That night, dinner was subdued. My father's usually commanding presence was tinged with unease. My mother's smile was thin, practiced, as if holding back a storm. I sat beside Ethan, searching for answers in his eyes, but found only shadows. Later, in the quiet of my room, I called my closest friend from college, Sarah, a sharp mind, an unwavering confidant. "I don't know who to trust anymore," I confessed, voice barely above a whisper. "My family is hiding things, dangerous things." Sarah's reply was steady. "You have to be careful, Sophia. The higher you climb, the harder the fall." Her words echoed my own fears, yet kindled a spark of resolve. The golden cage I inhabited was beautiful but fragile, and I was determined to find the key. Days blurred into restless nights as I grappled with the revelations tucked away in those hidden folders. The mansion, once a symbol of grandeur, now felt like a maze of shadows and half-truths. Every corner held a secret. Every smile masked a motive. I began observing my family with new eyes, watching the flickers of guilt in my father's gaze, the forced calm in my mother's voice, the tension in Ethan's stance. It was as if an invisible thread pulled taut between us, threatening to snap. One afternoon, I confronted Ethan in the sunlit conservatory, a place we once shared carefree laughter. "Do you know what's really going on?" I asked, searching his face for a sign of truth. He hesitated, then sighed deeply. "Sophia, there are things you can't understand yet. The family, it's complicated." "Try me," I insisted. His eyes met mine, heavy with unspoken burdens. "Dad's been making risky deals. Some aren't just unethical, they're illegal. Mum's trying to keep it all together, but things are unravelling fast." The weight of his words settled over me like a storm cloud. That night, as rain pattered softly against my window, I vowed to uncover the full truth, no matter the cost. The golden cage was no longer a prison I accepted. It was a fortress I planned to break. The days following my conversation with Ethan were filled with a restless urgency. The world I had known, the polished veneer of the Caldwell family, was fracturing beneath my feet. The questions that had long lingered in the shadows demanded answers. Determined to uncover the full extent of the deception, I began to delve deeper. The estate's grand library became my command centre, stacks of documents spread before me like pieces of a dark puzzle. Financial ledgers, confidential emails, and legal papers revealed a tangled web of corruption and manipulation. One name recurred with alarming frequency: Victor Hale, a businessman known for his shadowy dealings and ruthless ambition. My father's involvement with Hale hinted at secrets far darker than I had imagined. Seeking clarity, I reached out to an old acquaintance, Julia, a journalist with a reputation for fearless investigation. Over coffee in a quiet cafe, I shared what little I knew. "Be careful, Sophia," Julia warned. "The people you're dealing with don't hesitate to destroy anyone who threatens them." Her words were a stark reminder of the dangers lurking behind every revelation. Back at home, the atmosphere grew heavier. Whispers turned into guarded conversations. Doors closed a little more quickly when I entered the room. It was clear my digging had not gone unnoticed. Late one night, I overheard a conversation between my mother and a distant relative, their voices tense and hurried. "We can't let her find out the whole truth," my mother said. "If Olivia digs too deep, it could ruin everything." The words struck me like a blow, but I was already too far down the path to turn back. The hidden truths were emerging from the darkness, and I was ready to face them. The following days were a delicate balance of observation and stealth. Every interaction within the estate carried new weight, as if the very air was thick with suspicion. My family moved cautiously around me, their smiles tighter, their words more measured. Determined to find undeniable proof, I enlisted Julia's help. She leveraged her contacts and investigative skills, uncovering financial records and internal communications that painted a damning picture. Together, we traced illicit transactions, shell companies, and bribes that linked back to the heart of the Caldwell empire. One evening, Julia handed me a folder containing a series of encrypted emails between my father and a high-ranking official. The language was coded, but the intent clear: manipulation, concealment, and threats designed to silence dissent. My hands trembled as I read. The man I had admired was not the man I thought I knew. That night, I confronted my mother in the quiet of the drawing room. "Mom, why didn't you tell me?" My voice broke with emotion. She looked away, her composure faltering. "I was protecting you, protecting us." By lying, I asked, disbelief cutting deep. Tears welled in her eyes. Sometimes the truth hurts more than silence. But the silence was unbearable. I realized then that the path ahead would be lonely and fraught with peril. Yet I was resolute. The hidden truths had been unveiled, and now there was no turning back. The weight of the truths I uncovered pressed down on the very fabric of the Caldwell family, unravelling bonds once thought unbreakable. The house that had been a sanctuary now felt like a battlefield, where trust was a fragile commodity and alliances shifted like sand. Dinner conversations became arenas of thinly veiled accusations and simmering resentment. Eyes that once held warmth now flickered with suspicion or indifference. The laughter that once filled the halls was replaced by silence, punctuated only by the clinking of cutlery. I found myself isolated, a silent observer to the family's disintegration. My father's authority was challenged not just by external forces, but by his own kin. My mother retreated into herself, burdened by guilt and fear. Derek, my brother, oscillated between loyalty to the family name and a growing sense of disillusionment. One evening, after a particularly tense gathering, Derek and I found ourselves alone in the conservatory, the glass walls revealing a storm raging outside that mirrored the tempest within us. "I don't know how much longer this can hold," he confessed, voice low. "We're tearing ourselves apart." I looked into his eyes, searching for the brother I once knew. "We have to find a way through this, together." But the path ahead was uncertain, fraught with dangers both seen and unseen. The bonds that had defined us were breaking, and with them, the family I once believed in. The following weeks unfolded like a slow unravelling. Tensions once hidden beneath polite smiles surfaced in sharp words and cold silences. Family gatherings became battlegrounds, each interaction charged with underlying resentment and unresolved pain. One afternoon, I overheard a heated argument between my parents behind closed doors. Their voices, usually calm and measured, were now edged with frustration and sorrow. "You're pushing her away," Evelyn said, her voice trembling. "Sophia needs to know the truth." "Not all truths are hers to bear," Gregory snapped. "She's not ready for the consequences." Their words hung heavy in the air, a testament to the chasm growing between us. Meanwhile, Derek distanced himself further, caught between loyalty and self-preservation. I saw him late at night, poring over documents, his face etched with worry and determination. One evening, I confronted him in the study. "Derek, we can't keep going like this. We need to stand united." He looked at me conflicted. "It's not that simple. There are things at stake you don't understand." The gulf between us seemed insurmountable. Amid the fractures, I found unexpected allies, distant cousins, long-trusted family friends and old acquaintances who believed in justice and transparency. Together, we began to weave a fragile network of support, a lifeline amidst the chaos. The bonds that once defined family were breaking, but from those broken pieces, a new strength was beginning to emerge. In the shadow of shattered bonds, a new battle began, one waged not with open confrontation, but through whispered threats, calculated moves, and invisible alliances. The Caldwell family was no longer united by love or loyalty. Instead, it was torn apart by silent wars fought in boardrooms, drawing rooms, and behind closed doors. The estate that once echoed with laughter was now filled with the sound of hushed conversations and hurried footsteps. Trust became a rare commodity exchanged only with extreme caution. I found myself navigating this treacherous landscape, learning to read between the lines of polite greetings and diplomatic smiles. Every gesture, every glance could conceal an ulterior motive. One morning, I received an anonymous tip. A cryptic note slipped under my door, warning me to stop digging into family affairs. The message was clear: someone was watching, and not everyone wished me well. Determined to stay ahead, I deepened my alliance with Claire, our family attorney, and Marcus, the private investigator. Together, we uncovered evidence of backdoor deals, manipulation of shareholders, and threats aimed at silencing dissent. Meanwhile, tensions between family members escalated. Derek aligned himself with certain board members, while others quietly supported my efforts to restore transparency. The silent wars intensified as power shifted and new players emerged. It was a game of shadows where victory required patience, cunning, and unwavering resolve. Amid the intrigue, I realized that winning this battle was not just about exposing the truth, but about surviving the war within my own bloodline. The days that followed were a delicate dance of strategy and caution. Every meeting was an opportunity to gather intelligence, every conversation a test of loyalty. The estate became a chessboard, and I was determined to be the player who controlled the game. Marcus brought news that sent a chill through me. Several board members were being pressured by Gregory's allies to abandon their support for me. There were threats, veiled but unmistakable, designed to intimidate and isolate. Yet, pockets of resistance formed. A handful of shareholders, disillusioned by years of deceit, began asking uncomfortable questions. Their courage became my beacon in the growing darkness. Claire advised me to tread carefully. "This isn't just about family drama," she warned. "You're dealing with people who will go to any lengths to protect their interests." Late one evening, while reviewing documents, I discovered evidence of a covert plan to transfer control of the foundation to a shadowy consortium with ties to Gregory's business rivals. The implications were staggering, a hostile takeover that would not only destroy our family's legacy, but also endanger the futures of countless employees and beneficiaries. I shared this with Derek, hoping to sway him away from his father's faction. His reaction was mixed, torn between loyalty and his own conscience. "I don't want to lose everything, Sophia," he admitted, "but I'm scared of what fighting back might cost us." His words echoed my own fears, but steeled my resolve. The silent wars raged on, a battle fought in whispers and shadows, but I knew the time would come when the fight would be brought into the light. The line between family and foe blurred beyond recognition. In the midst of the silent wars, the stakes escalated, and I knew I had to cross boundaries I once vowed never to breach. The time for caution was over. The fight demanded boldness. The day I decided to confront the core of the deception, my heart pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. Gathering the evidence Claire and Marcus had helped me compile, I prepared to challenge not just my father, but the entire corrupt system he had built. Our confrontation was set for a private board meeting, a room that would soon become an arena of truths and lies. As I entered, the cold gazes of Gregory, Victoria, and their allies bore down on me. Their confidence was palpable, but I refused to be intimidated. I laid out the evidence methodically: financial fraud, illegal transactions, threats to silence whistleblowers. Each revelation landed like a blow, shaking the room. Gregory's fury erupted. "You're playing a dangerous game, Sophia. Be careful, or you'll lose everything." Victoria sneered. "You think you can take us down? This family runs deeper than you know." But I stood firm. "I'm not just fighting for myself, I'm fighting for the truth, for justice." The meeting devolved into chaos. Accusations, denials, and bitter words flew across the room. Lines were drawn, alliances tested. That day, I crossed the line from silent observer to active challenger. There was no turning back. After crossing the line, the battle intensified in ways I had scarcely imagined. The enemies I faced were no longer just those I could see. They lurked in shadows, whispered in hallways, and hid behind the smiles of supposed allies. Betrayal was a constant companion, and trust became the rarest of commodities. The fallout from the confrontation sent ripples throughout the family and the business empire. I quickly learned that the fight was as much about survival as it was about justice. Threats arrived cloaked in civility, anonymous letters, subtle warnings, and a palpable coldness from once warm faces. Marcus's investigations revealed a network of spies and informants embedded within our closest circles. Trusted advisors who reported back to Gregory and Victoria, working tirelessly to undermine my efforts. One evening, I received a cryptic message. "Not everything hidden is meant to be found. Be careful, Sophia." The warning was clear. They were watching my every move. In the face of growing isolation, I leaned on my few remaining allies. Claire worked tirelessly to fortify our legal defences, while Derek, torn but resolute, began quietly distancing himself from our father's camp. I found solace in small moments: a late-night conversation with Sarah, a friend from college who reminded me of who I was beyond the family legacy. Their support became a lifeline amid the storm. The estate felt colder, more distant. Every glance carried suspicion. Every conversation was a test. Yet, amid the darkness, my resolve hardened. The fight was far from over. To survive, I had to see beyond the obvious, anticipate the unseen enemies, and outmaneuver them at every turn. Because in this war of shadows, only the cunning survive. The battles fought in shadows had taken their toll, but they also revealed who truly stood by my side. As the walls closed in, I gathered what little strength remained from Ally's truth and an unwavering will to fight. I deepened my alliance with Claire, whose legal expertise became indispensable. Together we built a fortress of evidence, preparing for the inevitable showdown. Marcus expanded his network, uncovering hidden transactions and secret meetings that exposed the extent of the betrayal. Derek, increasingly conflicted, began to see the full picture. His loyalty shifted quietly, becoming a source of unexpected support. Late nights turned into early mornings as plans were laid, contingencies prepared, and strategies refined. The foundation of the Caldwell empire trembled under the weight of our resolve. Yet with every step forward, the risks grew. Threats escalated from veiled warnings to direct confrontations. But I refused to back down. The storm was coming, and I was ready. The carefully constructed house of cards that was the Caldwell empire began to collapse, piece by piece. The foundations shaken by relentless truths and exposed lies, the dynasty's facade crumbled before the eyes of the world. Board members once loyal to my father defected, swayed by undeniable evidence and mounting pressure. Shareholders demanded transparency, investigations were launched, and legal battles commenced. The media, hungry for scandal, circled like vultures, exposing every fault line with merciless scrutiny. Headlines screamed betrayal, corruption, and downfall. Within the estate, the atmosphere grew colder. Evelyn's gentle composure shattered, replaced by quiet despair. Gregory's confidence dissolved into desperation. Victoria's mask slipped, revealing raw panic beneath. The family gathering ceased. The mansion, once alive with pomp and purpose, became a house of ghosts. Yet, amid the ruins, I found a strange clarity. The fall was painful but necessary, a cleansing fire that would make way for something new. Standing amid the wreckage, I knew the fight was far from over, but the tide had turned. The house was falling, and I was ready to rise. The aftermath of the Caldwell Empire's collapse was a void filled with uncertainty, but also the quiet beginnings of hope. The name that once struck fear and commanded respect now echoed as a cautionary tale, but within that silence I discovered a freedom I had never known. No longer shackled by the weight of secrets and lies, I began to reclaim my identity. The pain of betrayal lingered, but it was tempered by resilience and a newfound clarity. With Derek by my side, whose loyalty had shifted from family legacy to truth, we started rebuilding. Not just the shattered remnants of our heritage, but the foundations of who we were as individuals. Friends became family trust, was slowly restored, and every small victory was a step towards healing. I launched initiatives to transform the foundation into a beacon of transparency and hope, a symbol of rebirth from the ashes of destruction. The city skyline, once a reminder of what was lost, now stood as a canvas of endless possibilities. I had learned that strength was born not from power or wealth, but from the courage to face the darkest nights and emerge into the light. And this was my dawn. The day of reckoning had arrived. Months of planning, gathering evidence, and rallying support culminated in this final confrontation, a decisive moment that would determine the fate of the Caldwell legacy. The boardroom was charged with tension. Faces once friendly now bore suspicion or defiance. The weight of truth hung heavy in the air. I stood before them, dossier in hand, prepared to lay bare every secret, every lie, every betrayal that had poisoned our family and empire. As I presented the evidence, I saw shock ripple through the room. The layers of deception peeled away, revealing the depth of corruption. Gregory's attempts to deflect and deny fell flat against the mountain of proof. Victoria's composure cracked under scrutiny, her facade slipping. The board voted unanimously, a clear message that the era of secrecy and manipulation was over. The Caldwell Empire, as it had been known, was no more. The courtroom was a place of cold finality, where justice, though delayed, was finally served. The months of turmoil, public scrutiny, and emotional upheaval culminated in verdicts that forever altered the course of our lives. Gregory Caldwell was convicted on multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy, his empire dismantled by the relentless pursuit of truth. Victoria's role was exposed, and she faced consequences that stripped her of power and reputation. Even Evelyn, once the family's quiet anchor, receded into shadows of regret and silence. For me, victory was bittersweet. The family I had known, flawed, fractured, and now broken, was gone. In its place rose a new reality forged from pain, sacrifice, and a hard-earned hope. Support poured in from unexpected quarters. friends, allies, and strangers moved by the story of resilience and courage. I learned that family is not only defined by blood, but by those who stand with you through darkness and light. The process of rebuilding began not just externally, but within. Therapy helped me untangle years of confusion and grief. New friendships nurtured my sense of self. And through it all, I found strength in vulnerability. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to forge. The legacy I would build would be one of honesty, compassion, and integrity. From the ashes of betrayal, a new beginning was born. Sunlight filtered softly through the curtains of my modest apartment, a far cry from the grand halls and marble staircases of my childhood home. Yet here in this simple space I found a freedom I had never known. The past was a tapestry woven with betrayal, loss, and heartache, but also with resilience, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth. I had shed the weight of a legacy built on deceit and emerged stronger, ready to write my own story. Each morning I woke with a renewed sense of purpose. The foundation, once a symbol of corruption, now stood transformed, a beacon of transparency and hope. Through the work I dedicated myself to, I honored those who suffered and those who fought for justice. The people who remained by my side, friends, chosen family, and even some unexpected allies became my true support system. Together we forged bonds that no scandal or secret could break. As I looked out over the city skyline, I realized that life was not about the perfection we chase, but the authenticity we embrace. The scars I bore were reminders not of what I lost, but of what I had gained: strength, wisdom, and the power to change. This was my new beginning, and with it a promise to live with courage, integrity, and hope, because sometimes the darkest storms bring the brightest dawns.